On this week's 2-minute tip, we're talking about compost. Now, we're big believers in compost around here. It's going to add a lot of nutrients to the soil so we don't have to use as many fertilizers throughout the life of our plants. And it's also going to amend and condition our soil and make it more workable by adding lots of organic matter. Quality compost is going to have a good ratio of nitrogen and carbon. You get your nitrogen or your green sources from things like manure, things that are rich in nitrogen, and you get your carbon or your brown sources usually from decayed plant matter, whether it be, grass trimmings or leaves or any kind of decayed plant matter. We like using manure-based compost because it's rich in nitrogen, and like I mentioned earlier, it's going to keep us from having to use so much fertilizer as we grow out our plants. I just went and got me a fresh load of compost for my spring vegetable garden, and this stuff right here comes from a chicken house. So I got a buddy who's a chicken farmer, and after they do a grow out of chickens, they go in there and scrape the floors of those chicken houses. So this stuff right here is chicken manure, and then there's also some peanut holes in there that they use in those chicken houses. So this is some really good stuff right here. You can kind of smell the nitrogen on it. It crumbles up pretty nicely, and we've been using this for a couple years. It works really good for us. In the past, we've also used compost from a local dairy farm, and that worked really nice as well. So if you can find you a chicken farmer or a dairy farmer and get some of their compost that's been broken down a little bit, it's going to be some good stuff. When you get your compost, it's a good idea to go ahead and cover it with a tarp and keep it covered. This is going to prevent it from drying out. If you leave it exposed to the air, what'll happen is it'll start to dry out, it'll get chunky, and it'll make it kind of hard to apply or spread in your vegetable garden. And when it comes to applying the compost in the garden, there's kind of two ways you can do this. You can spread it over the entire garden, or you can use the FAD system like we do and just put it where you plant. If your soil's kind of chunky and needs some organic matter, needs to be a little more workable, you might consider just spreading it over the entire plot. But if your soil tilth is nice, your soil is nice and workable, then you can just put it right where you plant it. So we'll just usually make a little furrow and lay the compost down in that furrow, cover it up, and then plant right on top of it. Doing this is going to allow us to stretch our compost pile further and make it last longer, because we're just putting compost there where the plants need it, and there's really no need to put compost in the walkways there where you don't have anything growing. So whether you make your own compost or get it from other sources like we do, make sure you use plenty of compost in your garden, and that's going to keep those plants fed and keep that soil nice and amended and workable. I hope you enjoyed this week's 2-minute tip. We'll see you next week.